Welcome to The Grant, the EU funding podcast. My name is Niels Tudor Winter, and I am the creator, editor, and host of The Grant, the EU funding podcast. Over spring and summer, I had a handful of guests coming through to get some more diverse content than just the timeline series. In particular, I reached out to the people that I have attached as advisory board members to get engaged with them through talks about what lies close to their hearts when it comes to EU R&D funding. Marie Latour is the Secretary General of the European Association of Innovation Consultants, and she was on my shortlist long before this podcast got real. That is because she has an immense amount of experience from the Brussels funding ecosystem, and therefore has in-depth knowledge about how a lot of things work in the EU institutions and the whole system that gives input to the work program content. On top of that, she's also an experienced private consultant. She asked for us to have a talk about the European R&D partnerships, and so it was. A vast proportion of the Horizon Europe budget has been allocated to the partnerships, and it is therefore a good piece of advice to pay attention to this episode. Marie rolls out the role that the European R&D partnerships play in the framework of Horizon Europe, and we have a talk about their importance and give directions to stakeholders who are thinking of applying for funding from these partnerships. Please enjoy. Grant. Welcome to the 16th episode of the Grant, the EU funding podcast. Today I have a guest from my the Grant advisory board, and maybe already now, Marie, introduce yourself, shall you?
Hello, hi Niels. Thanks for the invitation. I'm Marie Latour. I'm consultant today. And I'm the Secretary General of the European Association of Innovation Consultants. I've been 20 years in Brussels. I've been involved in EU projects for these last 20 years. And the last 7 years, I used to work for innovation consultants. So we created this association. Do you want me to tell a bit more now?
Yeah, let's wait a little bit with that. Thanks for this short introduction. So for the listeners, Marie has been on my shortlist when I started building up this initiative. I had the what I called my advisory board, which is just to keep in the lingo of proposals. It's more friends of the house, so to say, that I like to attach with specific capacities on that I'm not so strong in myself, but that can help me with knowledge about some things that I dig into. Marie was on the list, and Marie, you were that because it's exactly because you are the Secretary General of the Consultants Association. I kept an eye on that, and I think it's an important initiative because you have all these associations, industry associations, that go way back. You know, it's a huge, broad variety in Brussels. But the consultants themselves, grants consultants, they didn't have one. So I was aware of it when you started making the early days of the initiative. I had a left eye on it, and when I reached to the decision of doing what I'm doing here on this spare time initiative, I thought definitely I would like to have Marie Latour on board. So I'm very happy that you have agreed to join me once in a while. So thanks.
Thanks to you. Great.
Now to just shortly, maybe I'm just going to say a few words what the listeners can expect from this episode. So what we will have a short talk about the association, because I think it's important to share what you do there. You'll also have a little bit longer presentation about yourself, your experience, and so on. We'll start with that, and then we will move into the European partnerships of research. And I always forget the correct how you label them. They're called what? They're called the research and innovation partnerships. We'll get this is the main element of this episode, the main theme, because they are an important part of the research and innovation and development framework program, so to say, of where you can apply for funding. But they're complex. It's a complex sort of. It's difficult as an outsider, especially if you're new to this, to understand what they are and what role they play, and how the funding functions from these. So that's something that you have written an article about, and you have specific knowledge of it. So we will dig a little bit into that. That's important. So that's the episode of today. So, without further ado, Marie, maybe you put a little bit more words about your on your experience within the consultancy world, but also because you have a long experience. Been many years of experience in Brussels, in the Brussels ecosystem. So maybe you put a little bit of words on that.
Sure. Well, thanks. The association first, we were created as an informal initiative from few consultants at the initiative of the French Association of Innovation Consultants and few other non-French consultants. We gathered in September 2019 in parallel to the Research and Innovation Days. We decided to start cooperating together. On one side, to promote the role of consultants as professional project manager. We also worked on ensuring a continuity for the EIC accelerator that had been in a pilot phase in H2020. Mm-hmm. Then we continued talking. We liked the cooperation. It was the first time that really consultants were starting to talk together in an organized way. We set up a code of conduct. So our aim was also to ensure that there are more ethics in this sector. We suffer sometimes from a bad image due to the behavior of few consultants. And while we are a very important partner for the industry in particular, that have difficulties to understand the funding, existing funding that need support in their innovation process, that need support on the writing, in setting up the process. So we are facilitating a process, and we bring an expertise that they can hardly internalize in their organization. And so we are trying to promote a positive image of innovation consultants. Yeah. Today we have 50 company members, 2 associations, 2 national associations. Altogether, it's about 5,400 professional consultants behind these companies that we represent, and that work on many different instruments at regional, national, EU level. Some are have presence on a global scale. Our members are companies, so at the moment we don't have freelance. Many members do have freelance to function and be flexible, and we work on many different topics with them. So we review some instruments where there are issues, difficulties, where our clients are facing difficulties, like EIC Accelerator, which is still in a definition phase, I would say. We are working on the Innovation Fund, also, where it's an instrument that has triggered a lot of interest but is posing some difficulties. We are sharing best practices, for instance, on management of projects, or on how to handle the template of Horizon Europe. And then we do various types of workshops on new funding instruments, like for instance, the interregional innovation investment, new funding instruments from the Regional Development Fund. Mm-hmm. These are some examples of collaboration among our members. We gather very regularly on a monthly basis. We have a members meeting where we share and inform the members of the activities in the various working groups or some news from the EU level. And we have also been able to meet for the first time in person last time that was in November, and we are repeating that in June for our AGM. So that's the occasion to have the community for the first time gathering in person as collaborators, and to see where to work together in the same direction to promote the image of our profession and promote what we do.
Yeah, one of the reasons why I noticed it and kept a left eye on it is because I think it's important. First of all, I've been a private consultant quarter of my career, so to say, 1/4 of my career. I've been sitting on the public side of the table throughout the rest of my career, but so I sort of have both sides. But I was always concerned about how the outside world view private consultants within this area, because there's a particular difference between how people view management consultants, tax consultants, and so on, and how they view grants consultants. It's the renommée, the
Reputation, maybe?
the image,
Yeah.
the reputation of the sector is it's for some reason it is not very favorable. You often run into a very critical approach to the amount of money that we charge for the work we do vis-a-vis what other consultancy areas charge for what they do and are willing to pay for the work. And that I was always, but that's like I was it provoked me. Why on earth do I have to justify so much with so much professionalism that is being put into it, the work that I do? It's the willingness to pay for it. It has put a spark in me. Say that's not fair. Someone needs to speak the cause of what we do, because there's so much. I've met some of the most strong capacities within the consultancy world within my whole career. You're like so strong people, and yet they have to sit and negotiate over petty euros compared to other consultants for what they do. So that I'm very happy that there is an association that try to push for the image of the sector, because it's important.
Thanks.
So that's that. Second, it's also important in relation to the content. Yeah, because we have so much knowledge in the sector about what happens in Brussels, what happens in the R&D world, in the world that is trying to get those funding. So it's important that we give that input, structured to the Commission. So kudos. It was just a little promotion speak also on your part, so to say. So just very supportive for what you do. So I'm happy that that's happening.
Thank you very much, Niels. Actually, I think some agencies, some innovation agencies, national innovation agencies, recognize that role when they have programs to help to fund our work, to help their national actors to fund what consultants do. So I think your perspective is shared by a number of actors that recognize the role of consultants.
Yeah, let's let me just check the rundown here. So that's have you had any successes yet with the association? Is there something where you can see that it's already making a difference towards the Commission? Or?
Oh yes, I think we've particularly been very strong on the EIC Accelerator. In particular, we represent altogether 40% of projects funded on the EIC Accelerator. So it's very significant, and we've been able to provide some feedback, for instance, on the evaluation process at some point. Today we're trying to express the concerns from the selected grantees, also for the blending instruments. There is a very long delay in providing equity to those projects that were selected, and it's really posing a very very big challenge for some startups that cannot wait too long to get what the Commission promised. So here we are pushing very much. We've got the support from some very important member of parliament like Christian Eller, who is really pushing the same direction, because there is a difference between what the Commission proposed and what is being delivered due to some internal discussion inside the Commission, not the will of the EIC team, but much more from the DG budget side that is posing some difficulties. So we are saying the private sector startups cannot wait for too long, and the difficulties linked to the internal functioning of the Commission and decision making is not adapted to that world. So if we want to deliver what we promised, you have to act fast. So on the accelerator, we've had some successes in the past, and we're still pushing very much on this in particular.
Excellent. I'm happy to see it, and I'm happy to see that you have that you keep gaining members, because that's of course the basis of being able to strong member base to keep and improve the work that you do. Now, let's move on to the theme of this episode. We will have a talk about the Research and Innovation Network. So all of you out there, as you probably picked up from my other guest episodes with some of the other advisory board members, what I try to do is to ask my dear contacts that I invite on board here what they would like to have a talk about in the initial phase, because that's the motivation. It's also something that they do out of their spare time. Thank you so much, Marie. So and Marie specifically said this is something that I have at my heart, the research and innovation partnerships, and that would be nice to have an episode on that. So that's what we did. So we agreed on that. And the honest reply, or the honest reflection from my part for all of you out there, I'm going to share my my misunderstanding was that I thought Marie would like to talk about how to construct a consortium. And that's not the case. It is the research and innovation partnerships, which are a structure that is sort of an alternative to it's part of the Horizon, the framework programs, but they are other sort of structured in a different way, who is putting the money into them, and in a different way on how they do their own calls, and they have sometimes their own divergent rules on how to apply and so on. But this is what we're going to dig into now. They have a long history, and without further ado, Marie, maybe you can start with the historical background, because they do go 20 years back.
Sure. Indeed. Well, the partnerships are actually very important for developing some consortium. That's why I always insist that it's important to know them. So why they were created in 2000 was the time of the Lisbon Agenda. The Commission wanted to have a better understanding of needs from the industry, and have a strong improved research area. So that's when they created the European Research Area, and they created a first type of partnership called ERA that we have known until end of 2020. So that was back in 2000. That was the time of the FP6, Framework Program 6, 2006. At the same time, they actually also created the European Technology Platforms, which is not considered as a partnership in the same sense as Horizon partnerships are today, but were a very important place to gather actors from research and industry together to discuss about technology priorities. I was involved back at that time in the creation of one of them.
the main function of the technology platforms was for Commission to get closer to the industry, so to get them involved and to give input to the work programs.
Yes, and in an organized way. Instead of having companies, research, lobbying separately, they wanted to have recognized platforms, framework where all the key actors, European key actors from the industry and research, would come together and agree where research and innovation should go, where funds should be targeted.
Yeah.
Then we move to FP7, 2007. There is a second generation of European Research Area Partnership, ERA Plus, that are created. So you have ERA in many different sectors. You have solar ERA, wind ERA, and so on. And there was at the same time the need to create other type of partnerships, what was called institutionalized partnerships, such as the Clean Sky, CESAR, and many other partnerships. These partnerships became independent structures through which not only research and innovation priorities were defined, but calls, work programs were prepared, calls were launched, evaluation was taking place, and also the industry was requested to provide some funding as it would benefit from the results of the research. So this became semi-independent structures in working in parallel to FP7.
Exactly, and they had so what they did was they got their own organization with their own board, with their own that would define the work programs, and their own budget. So they got the money, half of it or something like this, from the Commission, from the frame program, and then the industry would pay the rest. No, wasn't it like this?
Exactly.
And then they would also make their own deadlines and so on. So sort of, and they got some flexibility also on the rules of how the application should look like, so to say,
Yes, they tried to stay aligned with the way FP7 or further later H2020, but they had more independence. In the governance, the Commission would be involved together with the industry. Then we move to H2020, 2014-2007. You have ERANET. Then you have the different types of institutionalized partnerships. You also have GPIs. So you have a mix of partnerships of all sorts. You have also the it's not called co-programs, was another, it was CPPP, public-private partnerships, like in the green vehicle, for instance. There are so many of them. Altogether, we estimate that there were over 200 types of research innovation partnerships in the previous framework program. The Commission and member states started to realize that it became too complex. Was impossible to have very difficult to have a full overview of all partnerships. So if from the institution it was difficult, imagine from the industry side how to understand the whole array.
Exactly.
That this is something, and the rules were very different from a partnership to another, even if there were some strengths from a type to another. And so there was a big work of rationalization that happened during H2020, so that in Horizon Europe, you have three main types of partnerships. Yeah. The co-programmed, the co-fund, and the institutionalized partnerships.
Before you continue, just for the listeners, just if you zoom a little bit out, why is the Commission doing this? Why did it become so complex? The whole rationale, the whole reasoning for this is to get engaged, because the Commission is very concerned about getting closer to the communities that are taking advantage of the money. They don't want to spend taxpayers' money and waste them, so to say. So the Commission always try to say, how do we spend the money best? And best is if we engage the communities, be it the public authorities or the industry and so on, for them to have the hand on the heating plate, also for the money to be spent the best way. So they define themselves, how is the money best spent within what we want to do here. That's the reasoning behind this, and the reasoning why it then goes into a big bouquet of flowers, as Marie has just explained, is because then let's go down this way because it's good. And then sometimes it becomes an administrative monster that the Commission sometimes has a little bit difficult to control. But the good thing about the Commission is that they themselves are aware of the feedback they get, and then they say, okay, let's reform the system. They also do this with the framework programs, with the rules and regulations. So no, that was just for people to understand why things move in this, what the idea from the Commission is. So yeah, good. Now, so on to how it looks.
Nice transition. Well, from a volume perspective, just to get an idea, when you look at Horizon Europe now for the next 7 years, half of the budget is going to Pillar 2, which are the societal challenges pillar. Which
and
is
how much is it? I forgot. How much is the figure?
It's over 50 billion euros. And half of this, Pillar 2, is going to partnerships. So it's very important to be aware of partnerships. Amount. It's nearly 25 billion going to the different partnerships.
I didn't know it was so big.
And most of them are under Pillar 2. And I'm going to come to more details on that. So to come back to the types of partnerships, so you have the co-programmed one. It is, I would say, probably the simplest type of partnership. It's a public-private type of partnership that involves industry, research, European Commission, and member states more and more if possible. You have 11, particularly in Cluster 4 of Horizon Europe. Cluster 4 is digital, industry, and space. And you have some that are 11 in Cluster 4 and Cluster 5. Cluster 5 is energy, transport, and climate. Mm-hmm. Then you have some which are cross pillars as well. So the co-program, what are they? They are a place where you have these actors coming together, and the role is to help the Commission in knowing where to put priorities for their future work programs. So the industry and research propose concrete topics to the Commission for preparing their first draft. So they are really at the start of the process for defining the future research and innovation topics. So in the topics that you find in the work programs, for instance, in Cluster 4 or 5, you will find a text that has been initially created by a partnership in the areas where there are partnerships. And it's always, today they always refer to the corresponding partnership in the text of each call. In the topic, you see this is linked to Made in Europe partnership, or this is linked to the batteries partnership, etc.
Is this, for instance, SPIRE, the SPIRE program?
It used to be called SPIRE. Now it's called the Processes for Planet. It's the new name of SPIRE. Basically, so they have the evolution.
So they have a place in the work programs under the specific where they sort of have their calls. You can see them lined out.
Processes for Planet will be in the Cluster 4 of the Horizon Europe work programs. This is for the co-program partnership. The second one is called
So just to take a hold a little bit here, because so these calls that are co-programmed, they run by the same rules as the other Horizon Europe
exactly
calls, right?
They are standard calls. They are part of the program. They are just defined by these structures as initially proposed by these structures. Then it goes through the commission that prepare the full draft, the first draft that goes to the member states that review in the program committee. They get inputs from their national actors as well that feed the process for defining the work program. So it's what we call in French the moulinette of the work program definition, and you end up with a text sometimes that is not easy to understand because it's been through so many steps. But when there is a co-program partnerships, most of the time the text of the calls are generally initiated by the actors active in that partnership. So it's very important to know this partnership and potentially to position yourself in this type of partnership when you want to influence the future topics.
Sure.
But we'll come back to that maybe later.
How it works is that because I have been involved in some of them throughout my career, P&O, my former employer, was involved in shaping Spire when it was started off in the first place. We've designed it. It was a tender to make it, so to say, and we won it. That was before my days, but so we had a huge stake in it, which also means that we were members, and I was joining the meeting. So how it works is that it runs like an independent organization, so to say, that has a member base, and they run a whole structure of delivering input to the commission on the framework program, input to work programs. But they also have behind those things lies a more longer plan on what they need to do, where they take input from members. So you have, if you're a member of these co-programmed organizations, you have an possibility to influence together with the rest of the members, of course, what will be in the so you actually you can have a direct influence on what will be part of the funding that you can apply for in the end.
Yeah. Altogether, the co-program partnerships represent 8 billion from Horizon Europe. So 8 of the 25 billion are for the co-program partnerships. So then you have the second type, which is the co-fund. Many people know it. For some of them were the ERAs, the Europe Research Areas, networks, let's say. They were already co-fund. So now it's called purely co-fund. And so it's partnerships that involve mainly EU countries. So you have research funders, other public authorities, and the Commission is co-funding it because it's launching calls that will help to run the co-fund and co-fund the projects. So today they are in the starting phase, so to be seen how they will work. There's been a clustering work in the restructuring of partnerships. For instance, in the energy sector, just to take an example of a sector that I know best, they've been clustering all the ERA nets that were called that were previous co-fund under H2020, and they have clustered under one single co-fund. I'm trying to find the name. No, it's the Clean Energy Transition Partnership, so it's a co-fund. Here, member states are gonna decide to put some budgets. The funding rate might differ from a country to another. In the past, the deadline was sometimes different from a country to another. It depended a lot from an ERANET to another. And so it's an interesting program, probably for some collaboration between different actors from different countries on a specific projects, often more bottom-up projects, but there are some calls, and the calls are released by the co-fund organization itself. It's usually led by a country or another in the co-fund side. I didn't apply. I don't have a huge experience applying to the ERANET calls. I think it was more depending on the funding rate. There are countries which are of more experience because there are countries were more favoring that, giving a higher co-funding rate than other countries. And you have a number of co-fund partnerships in cluster 1, which is a health cluster. Mm-hmm. You have two of them in the climate and energy mobility. And you have quite a number in cluster 6, food, bioeconomy, agriculture. So in health, you have one on transformation of health system, chemicals risk assessment, rare diseases, antimicrobial resistance, or personalized medicine. These are co-fund partnerships. In energy, climate, mobility, you have the clean energy transition 1, the driving urban transitions. So they usually it's the former ERANET or sometimes GP that were called that have become a co-fund. In food, you have a co-fund on rescuing biodiversity to safeguard life on Earth. You have on climate neutral, sustainable and productive blue economy, on water, on animal health and welfare, or on farming system transition, accelerating farming system transition, agriculture of data, safe and sustainable food system. And finally, you have a last co-fund, which is to support innovation ecosystems called innovative SMEs, which is totally new.
Is there a common place where you can pick up the calls on the co-fund?
For the co-funds, no.
Overview somewhere.
No, for the co-fund, you don't have, it's managed by the co-fund, each co-fund itself. They are being structured because first they needed to have the first calls of Horizon Europe being launched where the structure would apply for the call. And then they are setting up the structure now. So there is an overview of the status of all partnerships on the Commission websites. If you look for European partnerships, research innovation partnerships on the Europa website, you will find an overview of all these co-fund. I believe there will be more information in the future as they will become structured and links. So because they have really stressed the importance to be more transparent. Maybe the calls, I'm not sure if the calls of the co-funds will be available on Horizon Europe portal. It might be the case, but I don't have the exact information on that.
I think so. If we just zoom out again a little bit, so here, I think if you apply for funding from the co-fund, they have their own calls, mm-hmm. and here you need to. So each member state allocates a specific amount of money for the specific call, and when that amount is out, then you cannot apply anymore. Yet you can apply, go into a partnership with others, but you won't get any funding.
Yes.
So that's important to understand with these things, that it's different from strategic calls on the Horizon Europe, where everybody's in the same boat. Doesn't matter where you're from, but here you need to. They are very nice calls. You have a lot of nice things there, but you need to make sure that from the local, from the individual old ERANET sites and now co-funds, you can see which countries are members, and you will have the contact details for where to check locally, contact person, national contact point in relation to that. No, it's functions like this. No.
Yeah, exactly. And it might be some countries are not part of some co-funds if this topic is not a priority for them.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's move to the institutionalized partnerships.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a very important. This is probably Anyone who has followed the negotiation on Horizon Europe probably have heard about partnerships. And in that case, the Commission was only talking about those most of the time, because it's a whole process of renegotiation for each framework program. They have to go through a whole agreements through Parliament, member states, and they are much more visible. So there are partnerships in the field of research and innovation between the European Union member states and our industry. It depends on the sectors. So they have each of them. So they are belonging to a specific. So falling into a specific article of functioning of the European Union, so-called Article 187 or Article 185, and they have a dedicated structure to run them, as we explained earlier. So they are implemented where other parts of Horizon Europe is less strong, where Horizon Europe is not going to achieve the desired objective or expected impact. So they are fulfilling some gaps where Horizon Europe would not be able to, that the Horizon Europe might not be able to address. You have another type of institutionalized partnership apart from Article 185 and Article 187, which is the EIT, Knowledge and Innovation Communities, that was created, I think, before H2020, but if I'm not wrong. So it's continuing in Horizon Europe under as an institutionalized partnership. So in terms of partnerships, you have 10 under Article 185, 187. You have the Global Health Partnership. It was called, so it's the third wave for this topic. It's been called it's the European and Developing Countries Clinical Trials Partnership. So that's for the first one. It's in the health sector. Also in the health sector, you have the Innovative Health Initiative. If I'm not wrong, it's the former Innovative Medicine Initiative that has widened the scope. They have, each of them have different targets and objectives for their partnership. You have in the digital sector a key digital technologies partnership to address electronic components, their design, manufacturing, integration in systems, and the software that defines the way they work, these electronic components. So it's linked to other initiatives that we heard about recently, like the Microchip Act or the Industrial Alliance on Processors and Semiconductor Technologies, and the IPCEI, but we're not going to talk about that today. So they basically, this partnership is focusing on digital transformation of all economic sectors, and microprocessors in particular, and basically to help boost Europe's technological sovereignty.
What was the reasoning behind making these kind of? Because you would have, so if we look at so you have the co-program where there would be the industry would be involved together with research and work together with the Commission for the framework programs. Then you have the co-funded, the Aeronets, where the member states pick up a stake of things that have particular interest for them. And then these, they are much more independent.
Yes.
Yeah? They make their own work programs. They are not in Horizon. They're not in the framework programs. So they have the Commission refer to them. Hydrogen, for instance, it's not included. So it's sort of it seems more independent structures.
It is totally independent. I mean, well independent structures. The calls are now well visible in Horizon Europe in the participant portal.
Have they entered? Oh yeah, that's
yes,
true. Yeah.
they are integrating it, fortunately. But they are, so the why is the industry European industry is going to benefit from the results from those projects, and it is expected to participate in the definition of the priorities and also on the funding. So you have, for instance, the BBI, the former bio-based, now it's called Circular Bio-Based Europe. It used to be called Bio-Based Industry Partnership. And you have had some rules where, like, the large companies would not be funded, but they had to participate to projects because they would be the ones able to develop the innovations carried out during the projects. So the SMEs, the research centers, university would receive some funding, but the large corporations would have to be in the projects, but would not be funded. The rules were changing over time, depending how much was already committed by the industry over time. And so you see here is a way to commit the industry to and show to the industry you are collaborating in this project. This project needs to deliver and value in Europe. You're gonna develop get advantage from the IP that you possess from the work undertaken in the projects. We are not funding you as large corporations, but you are going to benefit from the fruits of the results from the project. So put your share of the money as well in let's say
Sort of
in involving your resources, but collaborating with other actors.
So seeing it sort of a look, you need to do this investment. You already decided to develop this technology, but what we're going to do here is you can go in and scale that up. Here, you can work together with partners you would probably work with anyways if you had to do this, and they get funding. So we make the possibility better for you to develop this technology, so to say.
And we fund what you want to be funded. This is you defining where the money should go. Indeed. So you have now these 10 partnerships. I mentioned a few of them. You have particularly some institutions. Well, you have them in health, in digital, industry and space. You have the HPC institutionalized partnership, partnership on metrology. You have the clean hydrogen one, as you mentioned, clean aviation one, single European sky. This is the third wave of industrial partnership. The Europe's rail in the railway sector, and this one I mentioned, circular bio-based Europe. And then you have the EIT. So EIT is another type of institutionalized partnership. They build some knowledge and innovation communities that gather industry, research, and universities. They are very much focused on developing startups, improving education, and this innovation, knowledge innovation communities. You have in the climate one, digital, food, health, raw materials, manufacturing, urban mobility, culture, and creative industries.
And those are very strategic collaborations. It's where the commission, this is important, and then they say, bang, here you have the best. You apply for an EIT. I remember the process back when they made them. It's a huge, very heavy partners would go into these consortia that would apply to become an EIT or manage it. So it's very, from the commission side, they say, here we need the best of the best to develop within this area, this socio-economic area, to where to move on with the collaboration between research and industry.
And education, very important. Yeah, and really it's a very important pillar for all the startup community. You have a lot of the companies that, the large corporation, for instance, that come in a knowledge innovation community. They are ready to fund startups or spin-offs from universities. So this is the investor part often of these large corporations that come into the EIT to invest in the future champions in new technologies or new solutions.
Mm-hmm. You know what I was just thinking?
No.
Do you have contacts in any of these? I do myself, but I like to activate my guest network a little bit here. Do you have some good contacts in the EITs or the Aeronets or that we could invite in?
Of course, yes. Particularly in energy. This is my strong background. I've been in solar energy and energy transition for many years. So for sure, yeah.
What I'm thinking, because I crack it always in my head at the same time as I have a guest on board to say, how can we make this concrete? Because now this is the overview that we're talking about here. Probably some are still a little confused. Mm-hmm. It's just like this, but what I'm going to do, point one, I'm going to put the articles that you have, I'm going to link that on my site so people can go and find it and read it, your article on this. Second, it's always good to make it concrete, to have guests in that where we can, okay, this is how this one works, and this is how it works when you apply for funding from it. This is how you concretely do, maybe come with example of projects with a concrete partnership, what they did and how they. So to sort of and the funding administrators from these organizations, they are the best ones to have on board for these kind of things. So if you have a person that say this is a good one,
I have few in mind. So
yeah,
with pleasure. With pleasure, and yes, you need to talk with each of them to really understand the functioning. But just to come back, why maybe the partnerships? Why we talk about it? Actually, it took me several years. I used to be working for consultants as well before joining EIC. 7 years at Zabala, and it took me several years before to understand. This framework, because it was you had over 200, so we had some picture about these partnerships, but and we were also very interested to know them, because when a company wanted to, we had some clients coming and saying, I want to be much more visible and be involved in much more European projects, where should I go? So the first thing you would look at is the partnerships and see how they would be positioned already or not there. If the solution is there would be a working group inside each partnership where they could become active and meet with their peers, maybe develop projects with their peers, and we would advise them to become part of a partnership. And if they were like a large corporation, to try to be influential in the board of a partnership. And that's the best way to position. And SMEs, they would not have the same means and time, but we would tell them, okay, let's look together who are the members of this partnership. And we will contact these companies, because they define the topics. They are likely to be in a project. So let's see who is in the board, who is in the membership of this partnership, who of them have already been involved in a project. So you would cross information from database of project with the membership of partnership and see who are the best players and the most active players so whom you have to team up to make sure you are in the right consortium.
Yeah, and what I can say is it's absolutely correct. This is, if you have, I've been both doing this in a public setup facilitator and as not so much as private. I've just been giving advice more because we were more grants application I was dealing with. But as a public facilitator, this is definitely an approach I also been taking myself, to say, okay, find where can I put them as easy as possible. Where they can pay the lowest fee or whatever, like what's the shortest way for them to have an influence on what they would like to get involved in. And this is it. You have these places where you can enter without too much troubles if you pay a fee and then become a member and invited to strategic workshops, all these things. Surely.
So the partnerships are an important place, and there are sectors. There's no partnership. But you do have a technology platform, as I mentioned. Sometimes you even have a partnership and a technology platform. That's what I saw happening in the battery sector. For instance, we were managing with InnoEnergy, the platform on battery, and now you have a partnership on battery because it has become such a strategic topic for the Commission. And so in the energy sector, you just to give an example, you have 11 European technology and innovation platforms. And actually there are little ecosystem by sector where you have the industry players, the research, the universities that are active in solar, in renewable heating and cooling. They gather, they define roadmaps, agenda, and they try to push on these agreed agendas to the Commission to have their priorities reflected in the work programs. I'm talking about work programs that are outside partnership.
Yeah.
So, and that's also important to find actors that are dedicating resource to research and innovation and that want to set up some projects.
Yeah, some of these the technology platforms. I've been in the wind platform myself back some 7-8 years ago, actively, and it's a lot of work going on there with not so much. It's because they sit and make a whole, so they collaborate closely with the European Commission on what's the budget available for the sector area, what areas do the Commission suggest, so they collaborate, so there's a lot of exchange on where things should go. And then the platform itself starts. They have working groups. I think they had 5 working groups, sub-working groups, where they had meetings throughout the years and so on to define and in the end come with concrete cold tech suggestions. And maybe the Commission, they would maybe come with 15 or 20 suggestions, and maybe 2 or 3 of them would actually enter the. So there's a lot of work. There's a lot of work there, but it's important to be there if you want to have a say.
It's a networking place.
Definitely.
Mainly. More than, I mean, it depends. In the energy sector, I've seen 2 platforms. I was involved in the creation of the photovoltaic platform back in 2004. If I'm not, I think it was Advisory Council called at the time. Yeah. And I was managing the ATIP on smart networks for energy transition, used to be the ATP smart grids. ATP's, so the new one moved to DGNR, which really used it as an instrument to build its work program, much more than DG Research was using its energy platforms that it had created a long time ago. It's an heritage. It's heritage from several commissions. They have supported, the Commission have supported for a long time these platforms, or some of them with CSAs, through CSAs, so coordination and support actions. I'm not sure it will continue. I think there is a trend, at least in the energy sector, where they say for the last call, you have to show how you will become independent financially, so they now have to work on it. I believe many technology platforms in other sectors today rely on membership and not on coordination and support actions.
What I would like to say about something to be flagged, the old joint undertakings, so the institutionalized, some of them are very close to communities. So it's meaning specifically, I know, for instance, hydrogen, but also rail. It's if you're not in there, the chance that you will just come from outside, apply for a call and get funding, it's not very large. That's the downside. What has happened to these communities is that they're so tightly knit that they sit and define the calls, and they make the calls, and then they make consortia that are the most likely ones to get the funding, and that's.
The rationalization exercise and the reform exercise that has happened to make them evolve it has very much pointed out this issue. Now they are going to start. I would say let's see how it goes, and we'll talk in 1 or 2 years to see if it's still so close or less close. So I hope they will become more open. Because in officially you don't need to be member to apply, but indeed it's about when you define the topic and you put the words, sometimes you have specific technologies that you want to push that these words reflect, and you are the best place when you draft it to, but sometimes you're not. But you're not winning. But in the institutionalized partnerships, it's been particularly the case. In the co-program was less obvious, the fact that you were.
Problem with the
favored.
institutionalized was that they because they're independent, they define also the call logistics. So what happens is that it's absolutely impossible to get draft work programs, which you would know from the commission. You get the drafts and you can start to work with it. They keep them close.
In the membership if you are a member of the partnership, you get them, but outside it's very difficult indeed.
And then they would, when they release them, they would be like month and a half or 2 months to the to the call deadline. So all of the ones inside of it, they know exactly how. So they everything is more or less prepared. They have the consortiums ready, and then bang, it's and you can understand them because they contribute themselves. So it's sort of they fund the party
and money. So
yeah.
Let's see if this is going to evolve. We can talk about it in a few months.
I would love to see if we could get some guests in from these. I'm not gonna be critical with them when they come around. I would like to hear the from their point of view, so to say. We'll see if we can get some on board.
If they listen to your podcast, I don't know if they will want to come.
Nah, but then they can. It's like a media. Then they can have a chance to say this is the reasoning behind, or it's like this. We'll see. It's also a matter of context. So it's. I think I would be able to get someone out. We'll see. Marie, maybe we should slowly move towards wrapping this episode up. I think we covered quite well, sort of an introduction to the partnerships. What I always do as a segment in my episodes here, both when I do solo episodes and when I have guests, is I'm addressing the toughest challenge. I think I myself have just addressed the one that I have in mind, that some of these have become independent units that it's so difficult. I remember in P&O we were struggling hard to can we get something, What would you consider the toughest challenge in relation to applying for funding? Is it the diversity and the difficulty in understanding? You said yourself that you struggled to understand the structure of it.
I think it's improved. I'm wondering if there will be some overlapping at some point between different partnerships or non-partnership calls. It could be the challenge you mentioned, that it's not that open to non-members of the partnerships.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
On the co-fund, to be seen if the issue that we faced in some ERANETs, where you had calls at national level at different dates, different funding rates, is continuing or not. But generally, I think you should never hesitate to try to network with the members, because this is, and as early as you can, this is for sure the best positioned actors in Europe in terms of research innovation in a field. So knowing who are the members, interacting with them, becoming member if you can afford, and to spend time and pushing for your own priorities and solutions is definitely what I would recommend. We see some very successful companies. One we had a very important client from industrial client from Spain when I was at Zabala, and you could see they were positioned in all the boards of the relevant partnerships, and this is certainly was a very strategic move from that organization to be defining and cooperating with the right actors.
So they invested time in understanding the structure of where to go, and then that's.
And you see it for the most successful research centers. They are where they should be, and I've understood that very well.
Indeed, and let this be also an advice to you people out there listening that has an interest in these things. It pays off. It definitely pays off to investigate a little screening and mapping time, so to say.
It's
on
much
to
easier today. Maybe a website which I've used a lot to understand the partnerships is the ERA Learn, which is a project that has been funded too. It's more focusing on the co-fund ones, but they have always provided a lot of information on the partnerships.
Can you share that link with me?
I will, yes.
Because then I will put it up I will make a resource sub page. I haven't got it yet, but when this episode is out, it's there. So I will make, because I get a lot of advices from the guests I have, and so I try to gather things so people can go and I'm not, as I said also in earlier episodes, I'm not going to be myself making a whole structure of information, but I am going to link to where you can get more information and help. So, no. Thanks. What I always ask my dear guests the first time they're in is on a lighter side, to end on a light note. What are you most proud of from your career? It can be anything. In relating to EU and RD grants.
Well, I think I've been able to develop a community of and a network that I can work and connect to very regularly, and an understanding of the whole funding also that the European Union is proposing, and this is something that before entering the consultant world I had. I would be in the forest lost, and I would see paths and some lights and some branches, but I would not understand how this forest is shaped. And today it's really like being able to circulate in that labyrinth very smoothly, and sometimes you understand some specificities, and you feel much more confident that you can guide anyone through this labyrinth. And well, that would be one of my pride in this area, I would say.
Thank you. And it's a good one, because you know what? It's actually one of the motivations behind why I'm doing this. It's because it's a parallel. I always said this is a parallel world. People do not. It's a whole universe parallel to the real world, so to say, with its own lingo, with its own system in layers that is unimaginable before you step into it, and it's so complex that there is definitely. I feel myself that it's weird that nobody picked up to make podcasts on this, because it's obvious that there's the craving for information about so many things in this. It's endless, because there's so many people sitting with this every single day, trying to understand, just like you and me, because I had exactly the same like you. It took me so many years to really comprehend and start to go. And there's still elements. This area that we just talked about today, I've never really dug into it. I've sort of got an understanding, but really understanding the complexity and so on. There's so, like you can do this all your life, EU grants funding area, and still evolve. you would have blanks or say why. Oh, that exists,
Yes.
No. On that note, Marie, let's end this up. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for inviting me.
But you're most welcome. I'm so happy to have these people on board. People are so kind when I reach out. It's very nice. So thanks for this, and for you, dear listeners, thank you for listening to the end. And I'm now sort of guiding you towards my website. It's thegrant.eu. There you will find all the episodes, the past episode, and that's most important. You will find a virtual forum to subscribe for the podcast. This is the best way for me to build the community. It's the best way to build the podcast. So please do subscribe if you have an interest in this. Come on the email list, and I have sort of a carrot for you to do that. So I developed a LinkedIn discussion forum, but you can only get access to that forum when you subscribe to the podcast. So any kind of discussion or questions you will have, that will go on in the LinkedIn group. So that goes on in the LinkedIn forum. So to get to the LinkedIn forum, subscribe to the podcast. Thanks again, Marie. Thanks to all you listeners, and see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
The Grand. You have been listening to The Grant, the EU funding podcast.